everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name's Amelia and here on this channel we talk about writing, journaling, and scrapbooking to help you curate a life that you love. So recently I went back into my analytics to kind of see what was the most popular content for the past year. Now I'm not a big analytics person, I should be, I know it's important, but I just kind of don't ever check. So I was interested to see what my top 5 videos were of 2021, and honestly I was a little surprised. So 2 of the most popular videos of 2021 for me, not the most popular, that one somehow the algorithm picked it up, I don't know what happened, but 2 of the videos that I did find in my analytics that a lot of people seem to enjoy were the how to journal with the lunar phases and how to journal with tarot, the first one. Now I did make a second video about how to journal with tarot, and I also made a video about shadow work where I think I mentioned tarot in it, but these like mystical, magical, spiritual videos seem to be something that you guys are really interested in. Now, I want to preface this particular video anyway with a mild disclaimer that I'm not actually going to discuss spirituality or divination in this video. So if you're interested in divinatory stuff, because tarot at its core is in a sense a divinatory tool, you might have to go check out those other videos because this one's not going to go into spiritual stuff, we're just going to talk about journaling. So before we get into this video, I did want to ask you guys to let me know if you like this kind of content, if you want to see more tarot journaling prompts or spiritual journaling prompts, journaling sessions. If you're interested in that stuff, maybe you want to see a journal with me when I use tarot on my own, or if I use other spiritual methods, I suppose we could word it that way, like shadow work and stuff. If you want to see like me doing those things on camera and guiding you through the process, please let me know if you're interested in that. Give this video a thumbs up, that'll let me know, or comment down below what you would like to see. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this video because it's going to be a hefty one. So like I said, this video is going to be kind of extensive. I'm going to try to keep it as short and sweet as possible, but I do expect it will take a while, so grab a cup of coffee because this one's going to be a doozy. So I wanted to talk a little bit about journaling with tarot. I know I have 2 videos on this already, but for the sake of this one, I did want to kind of cover it a little bit. Now, when I'm speaking about journaling with tarot, I'm not, in this video anyway, I'm not speaking about divinatory work. I don't think that tarot necessarily has to be a spiritual or divinatory tool, no matter what your religion, your background, your sense of spirituality or connection. I think that you can actually gain some insight from the tarot for journaling and healing parts of yourself that you may not be aware of. So for this video, I'm actually going to go over the 22 major arcana and talk about what their archetypes mean and what sorts of journaling activities and prompts you can gain from each archetype. Now that's why this video is going to be a very long one. I'm not going to go over any of the minor arcana, so there's not going to be any talk about wands, swords, pentacles, cups, all that stuff. If you don't know what I'm talking about when I say minor arcana and major arcana, then I highly recommend you check out some online resources. Biddy Tarot is a good one to find the difference between the 2. Essentially, the major arcana cover major aspects in our lives and our archetypal energies that we can work with and understand to better work through our life and our life experiences. Now, the goal of this video is going to be for me to cover the energy and the type of characterization that goes along with each card to help you gain some ideas and inspirations for journal prompts. I will be listing about 3 to 5 journal prompts for every single card that we go over today. Again, 22 cards, to help you find inspiration and pick a theme that you are interested in. Obviously, you can go very in-depth with all of these cards, all of these archetypes, and you could find ways to journal in a way that really deep dives into that specific energy. When we think of the tarot, we think of a microcosm. In the tarot, no matter what card you pick, it is a reflection of something that happens in our world, or the macrocosm. So what I'm doing here essentially is picking a piece of the microcosm, say like the Empress, and I'm working with her motherly, creative energy to heal wounds or to explore parts of me and my identity that exist here in the macrocosm. I'll put some definitions up on the screen in case you're confused on the difference between those words, but essentially we're just going to use the tarot as a guide for journal prompt inspiration. So for this particular video, I am going to be using the Ethereal Visions Illuminated Tarot Deck by Matt Hughes because this is my study deck. I don't know why, I just really like the pastel colors. The deck is very nice to me, so I like to use it for studying. But this is one I'm going to be putting up on the screen and showing you guys. I'll have some images nearby, but we're going to be using this one. Also, it's already in order, so that makes going through the major arcana so much easier because I don't have to sift through all my other decks or like order any cards because that takes some time. So we'll just go through this one. Now, this particular deck does come with 2 extra major arcana cards, which are the Artist and the Well, but since they're not traditional major arcana cards, I'm not actually going to talk about them or use them in this video. But we will be using the traditional 22 major arcana, starting with the Fool and ending with the World. Now, this is the Rider-Waite-Smith system, not the Thoth system, not the Hermetic Tarot, nothing like that. We're just doing the RWS system because that's what this deck is, and it's the one that I'm most familiar with, and I don't know if it's necessarily the most popular, but I do see it everywhere, so it's likely that most decks you pick up are going to be RWS. Alright, so let's go ahead and get into it. I will put timestamps down below with each card if you do have a general idea what the tarot means and you want to hone in on one card in particular, but otherwise, let's just start with the Fool and work our way up. So when I think of the Fool, I think of the keywords that we often associate with it, like new beginnings, a new journey, maybe some innocence, naivety, stuff like that. And when it comes to making journal prompts for this, I would say that this is best suited for a time in your life where you're on a new journey. Maybe you have a new job, you've made a new friend, you're moving to a new location, you're just doing something new to you. Something that's out of the ordinary that could change your path in life and could affect you when it comes down to like life experiences that shape you as a person. When I think of journaling with the Fool, I think of tapping into that like curiosity and intrigue in order to feel confident and excited about what is going to happen. Now, I'm not going to read out all of my journal prompts, but I will put them up on the screen. Feel free to pause the video for any of the cards that we have to use these prompts because, like I said, I don't really want to keep this video too long, but I will put the 3 to 5 prompts up on the screen and feel free to use them. Now, when I journal with the Fool, or if it comes up in a reading for myself, I usually try to think about how new beginnings are going to affect me, how I feel about them, am I apprehensive, what am I seeing, what am I not seeing, what should I think of when I move forward. This is especially good, again, for like new life changes, new paths, and coming to this conclusion of, am I walking into this with an insightful, inquisitive mind, or am I kind of walking into this with ignorance and perhaps not really paying attention to the world around me? The next card that I wanted to discuss is the Magician. So the Magician is a card that I've recently been tapping into a lot. I think that there's a lot of trust that comes with this card, a lot of understanding that you have everything you need in order to achieve success or to create the life that you desire. I also want to preface, I probably should have said this in the Fool, but I'm going to keep these card meanings as basic and simple as possible and just use prompts up on the screen to kind of do the talking for me to help inspire journaling sessions for you, but I'm not going to go into like the deep dive on these cards, essentially mostly because of time, but also because I tend to do that more when I have specific readings and they pop up for specific questions I'm asking. And again, if you guys want to see that, I can always make a video about my deep dive or like a journal with me if you guys want to be a part of it. But anyway, back to the Magician. The Magician tends to symbolize this idea that you have everything that you need in order to create a life that you adore. It also stands to represent this as above, so below mentality, as in the macrocosm, so is the microcosm, so on and so forth, that things are here for a reason, they reflect something greater. It's a really good card for spirituality, but I think it's also an important card for understanding like your life and the elements that exist around you in the everyday, the mundane, and kind of understanding how that plays a role of importance in your life. So the next card in this system is the High Priestess. Now, the High Priestess can represent this divine feminine aspect of self. It tends to be more crone energy and represents this idea of wisdom, serenity, peace, spirituality. The High Priestess is often associated with the moon, and I think she's a good card to work with during full moons or new moons, and it's great to pull on these kinds of prompts that I'm putting up on the screen during those time periods where perhaps your sense of purpose and divine guidance is necessary in life. Now, the Empress is probably one of my favorite cards to use through journaling practices because she has quite a bit going on that I think we can all tap into. First of all, she represents this idea of the motherly figure. She has a motherly sort of energy, and you can use her card in particular to ask yourselves questions like, how am I a mother to my friends and family? What is my relationship to my mother? Or how can I birth an idea into this world? Certain like motherly aspects. I think she has a nurturing side of her that helps you understand like self-care but also care for others. And then she also represents this idea of creativity. She is the feminine aspect, as we'll see the Emperor is the masculine aspect in the next card. And this femininity that we all have, everyone has a bit of femininity and masculinity within themselves. She represents this idea of the messy, the creative, the mildly chaotic but also exciting, this part of nature that just is overgrown and that we don't necessarily have to control. We can just let life be a little messy, and that's okay. And I think that she really inspires quite a few journal prompts, which is why I really like using her as a guide for journaling sessions. Now, the Emperor, like I mentioned, represents the divine masculine aspect. He represents that masculinity that exists within all of us. He represents structure, stability, and this idea of like man-made creation. Where the Empress represents like ideas, maybe artistic endeavors, I think the Emperor tends to represent more of the grounded, physical, perhaps more analytical and mathematical side of humanity. It's no secret that humanity has used math in order to chart stars and seas and to use geometry and measurements to build amazing structures. And I think that to view the man-made world as something unnatural and not important is not necessarily how we should go about the Emperor energy. I think that having a house and having these man-made objects, while yes, they're no replacement for the natural world, they are a part of humanity and what we have, created and built for ourselves. And I think that tapping into the Emperor energy is less about domination and control and more about this idea that you can create in a structured way, that you can be lawful in a good way. I think it's more about, when we journal about this stuff, we should focus on the positives and not necessarily that idea of like conquering and destruction, which is technically part of the Emperor as well, but I kind of like to use the journaling as a way to uplift rather than to focus on the negatives. Similarly, the Hierophant also represents structure, but specifically with education, spirituality, you can kind of think of the Hierophant as like the embodiment of church. Now, I think this is a really good card for people who do attend church or monasteries or wherever they go to practice their organized religion. I do think that for people who are a part of a religion could find this card or the journal prompts of this card to be very uplifting and inspiring and perhaps help you get closer to your god or gods. I also think that if you are just spiritual or even if you are not, I think this is a good way to evaluate education, how you learn, how you spread knowledge, and how you share understanding with others. So this is a really fun card to use, especially if you're in school or if you are like working towards a project which requires you to study and do a lot of learning. I do think this is a good card for spirituality, but rather than being an internal representation like the High Priestess, it's more of an external representation. But again, I really like journaling with this particular energy because I think that it helps me to be more grounded and to think of my education as something that is extremely important for my well-being and growth as a person. Alright, so the sixth card in the Rider-Waite-Smith system is the Lovers card. Now this one can be a little confusing for people. You typically think of two lovers. It's often there's two lovers depicted on the card, but I don't think it's just about romantic love. The Lovers can be about platonic love. It could be about familial love and love for yourself. I think that with the Lovers, the energy comes to unconditional love. If I had to associate this card with a chakra, I would choose the heart chakra, and the heart chakra isn't just about romantic love. It's also about how you love yourself and how you express love to others, to the world, to your pets, any way that you can. And I know that I've made a grounding video, a root chakra video before, and I do want to make a chakra video like for each one. I hope that really helps you guys as well. But I think that the journal prompts I'm going to be using here are very similar to the ones I would be using in the heart chakra video whenever I film it. So the prompts on the screen are inspired by this unconditional love and expression of self that I think is extremely important in our everyday lives and can help us heal ways that we like how we understand others and how we feel about ourselves. The Chariot is a card I really like seeing in the major arcana, as in like I like when it comes up in readings for me. It's about ambition, goal setting, and going after the things that you really want. After all, as you see in this channel, when I open up my intro, I talk about curating a life that you love. And I think that with this Chariot card, it's very much like that. It's very rooted in this idea of goals and ambition and chasing your dreams. I think this is a good card to represent the idea of exploring your passions and figuring out what it is that you really want and really want to curate in your life. The Strength card is pretty straightforward. It's about having strength, courage, and being able to be proud of your accomplishments. But I also think there's an internal aspect of it too, to have this inner strength, this resilience and persistence, to go after the things that you really want, while also being resilient in the face of struggle or hardship. When I use this card for journaling, I typically try to focus on that inner strength, that resilience, that idea of what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Thank you, Kelly Clarkson. Because I do think that we go through hardship and struggles for a certain reason in order to become better versions of ourselves, in order to strengthen our minds and our souls. And I think it's important to understand that you experience everything for a reason. Now, whether that's a divine reason or whether that's just, I don't know, I don't have an explanation for it. I think that being able to use these prompts to find out what strengthens you and what makes you feel sturdy and grounded is very important. The Hermit card was practically made for journaling and journaling prompts, and I really like this card. This might honestly be my favorite Hermit for some reason. I don't know why I like it. He looks like Gandalf. But I also really like the energy of the Hermit. I myself am kind of a hermit. For example, as I'm filming this video, my friend has invited me to come over to her house. She has bribed me with food and also seeing her new dog, and I'm still struggling to decide if I want to go. Like, I like those ideas, but I also love staying at home by myself. Anyway, the Hermit isn't just about being physically alone. It's actually a card about introspection, self-reflection, and going on this journey of personal and spiritual growth on your own. People don't always travel with you when you grow as a person. They don't live through all of your life experiences the way that you do, and the Hermit card represents this idea of really meditating on what it is that you are experiencing, how it affects you, and where you intend to go with this new information. I really like this card because I do think it's like the embodiment of what journaling is all about, because journaling is a personal endeavor that you do by yourself. Yes, you could journal with others and share what you've written. Only you have that emotional weight to your prompts. Other people won't necessarily feel the same, and their perception of how you feel or what you've written is going to be vastly different from your perception of what you feel and what you wrote. Still, this is a really fun card, and I do think it's a great one to start out with if you are just getting into journaling. The Wheel of Fortune is a bit more complicated, I think, in order to journal about, but when I do journal with it, and I did for a very long time last year, it's more about accepting what is, trusting the process, and understanding that there is either a path for you or that you don't necessarily need to control everything in your life in order to be happy. While we focus a lot about curating a life that we love through routines and through personal achievements, we focus on how we can manipulate the world, I think there's a lot of stuff beyond our control that we really need to come to terms with. While it's great and all to have a say in every aspect of your life, to try to build a life that you're proud of and that you want to stay in, I think it's also necessary to understand that if life throws a curveball at you, you need to roll with it. You need to roll with the punches. You need to go along. It's okay to be the leaf in the stream. You can let the water guide you. You don't necessarily need to be the rock that fights against it. And I think that there's a time and place for both. There's a time for control and there's a time for acceptance, but this card in particular is about acceptance. You can't for example, you can't control how someone else treats you or how they act or react to something that you say or do, but you can control your actions. And sometimes it's about accepting that what is, and sometimes all you can do is control your end of it. Justice is a card that I actually don't have a lot of emotional attachment to. So expressing journal prompts for this is going to be tricky for me personally because I don't have a very good connection with the card or the energy as it is. To me, justice is a lot like law and order and fairness, but I think it's also about this idea that what goes around comes around, karmic energy, but not the same as Wheel of Fortune, where Wheel of Fortune asks you to accept what is, and you can only control so many things in your life. You need to trust the process. Justice to me is more like karmic energy, like what you put out into the world will come back at you twofold, or how you treat others will affect how they treat you, that sort of thing. I think it's about this idea of balance and equality. So when I look at the Justice card, I think more of how what we do needs to be in balance, how the universe will always find a way to balance out what is and what has happened. If, for example, if you are trying to control every little part of your life, you've become domineering, perhaps the authoritative energy of the Emperor, then Empress energy, which is a bit chaotic and messy, is going to come through and level the playing field, even if that means putting you through a lot of struggle and hardship to maintain control. And so I think justice is more about that idea that cycles exist and that what you do and what you put out will come back to you. That if you're generous, people will be generous with you. If you are kind, people will be kind with you. Obviously, that's not always the case, but I think it's important to understand this idea that you can choose how you express yourself and put yourself out there in the world, and that eventually that good energy will come back to you. If you are a tarot reader or you have more experience with tarot, please let me know what you think about this interpretation or what you personally believe with the Justice card, because I am still exploring this, and like I said, I don't have as much of a connection with it as I do some of the other major arcana. The Hanged Man is definitely an interesting card to think about when it comes to journaling. It is about surrender. Again, kind of that trust the process energy as the Wheel of Fortune, but a bit different. It's more about surrendering to what is, taking a pause, and asking yourself what it is that you need to release in order to move on. Rather than just letting the world trample over you, it's more about what can you do to not be trampled on or to move forward in your journey. I think the Hanged Man is also about this idea of release and new beginnings in a sense. I think it's more about the end of something, and I mean that it's reflected in the next card, but I do think that the Hanged Man is that moment before everything changes, and it's up to you to decide where the path goes. The Death card is one that gets a bad reputation, but really it's not necessarily about like actual death. It's more about an end to a cycle, an end to stuff that is no longer serving you. I think this card has plentiful opportunity and meaning when it comes to creating journal prompts with it. I mean, how many times do you have to end relationships, jobs, life paths, or activities, projects, or bad habits in order to actually create the life that you desire to be in? Like, we all go through phases, and there are times when those phases come to a close. To give you a very, very simple and not emotionally heavy example, my room has been changed. I know I didn't mention it earlier in the video, but it is. That stuff's not the normal background. I used to be really obsessed with this dark academia vibe, and I realized that I needed more color and light and happiness in my life. And so the end of my dark academia era has come, and now we're in a new era of color and whatever is happening behind me. It's kind of messy, honestly. But that's obviously a simple thing. That ending isn't just physical. I actually feel like I've come to an end of a cycle in my life, and I'm completely shifting. Where death is an ending, it is also a new beginning. And sometimes it's important to experience that in order to move forward and become your best self. So I hope these journal prompts help you, because these are things that I think we all deal with all the time throughout life. Temperance is a really fun card, and I actually pulled it the other day in a different deck, and I think Temperance comes with this idea of not just balance or like fairness, like justice, but like this idea of you need to balance your priorities, your life, whether that's your work-life balance, your self-care, or your generosity, whether that's between how much you spend versus how much you save. There's always a need for balance, and I think that it's very easy for us to get out of balance. Sometimes we become too controlling like the Emperor, sometimes we become too messy and like, I don't care what happens like the Empress. Sometimes we become too attached to things around us, and sometimes we're not attached enough. And I think that with this particular energy, it's more about finding that balance, figuring out where in your life things are not necessarily how they should be, where things are out of whack, and going in and trying to fix it, finding balance in your habits, your daily routines, stuff like that. The Devil card also gets a bad reputation, and I understand. I think when the Devil shows up, it can be a little intimidating, a little scary, mostly because of the associations we have with the Devil. I grew up in a very Christian society, so I also kind of get a little squeamish with this card, not going to lie. But I think that that's a good thing, because this card is about addiction. It's about those negative aspects we see in movies when it comes to humankind all the time. Greed, power, obsession, like all of these horrible things that people have. And I think that it's important to recognize that while those aspects do exist in life, there is also the alternative, that you can release that you can let go of toxic traits and bad habits. I think of the Devil as shadow work, so a lot of the prompts I'll put up on the screen are shadow work type prompts, or prompts that help you target the darker, deeper aspects of your life and yourself in order to find healing. This card encourages you to face your own traits and your own imperfections, and then reevaluate what's important to you and how you can better express yourself in a healthy way. How can you avoid addiction? How can you step away from obsession or power or greed? And I think that's a really important thing to consider when trying to become the best version of yourself. Because while yes, these things exist, and in some way or another all of us have felt these emotions before, we have to understand that we can still control that part of ourselves, and that it's like that old saying with the two wolves inside of you, where you have like an evil wolf and a good wolf, and whichever one you feed is the one that will be in more control. And so I think it's more about trying to feed the good wolf and not the bad one. The Tower card is notorious for its just really well known in the tarot community. I cannot tell you how many times I've gotten mad at a deck and it spits the Tower at me. I call that attitude. But irregardless, the Tower does represent complete change and upheaval. I think for people who are going through a period of their life where it feels like they have no control, that they cannot stop the bad things from happening, depression, anxiety, these horrible feelings, these horrible events in their life, this is where Tower energy comes in. It's always nice to assume that when shit hits the fan, that better things are coming. It's not always true. And I think with the Tower, this is like the really deep stuff in shadow work. If the Devil was shadow work on yourself, the Tower is shadow work on your circumstances, environment, and things you may not be able to change. And I think that the important thing here is, again, to trust that there is something better for you, there is divine guidance, and to look for ways where you can find your own sense of power or your own sense of autonomy in order to change your environment or to change perspectives or situations. Again, we're not always in control and bad things happen. This is a very touchy subject, I think. I typically try to tread very carefully when we talk about really darker, deeper things, because I know how hard it can be to fight battles that you aren't so sure you're going to win. And so I think that with this card, it's important to focus on the healing and to trust and believe that there is going to be a light at the end of the tunnel. And speaking of the light, we have the Star. So the Star is that essentially the light at the end of the tunnel. It's the next one in the major arcana, and it represents this idea of hope, renewal, revitalization, rebirth, all of these nice sweet things. I think the Star asks us to find clarity in our situations and to really hone in on that hope, that new energy that feels refreshing and gentle and reassuring. I think the Star can also be seen in divinity if you, again, are part of a religion or have a spiritual practice. I think it's a great place to look and to write about, to be connected to when it comes to this. But I think that the Star also represents this idea that you've experienced hardship and you've grown. You've conquered it, you're stronger than whatever tried to push you down, and it's a good place for reflection and being like, you know what, I'm proud of me. I'm proud of me for doing that and for being where I am today. The moon is the next card, and this one's a bit more nuanced than some of the other cards we've talked about. The moon can represent two ideas, and I kind of think of it as the light side of the moon and the dark side of the moon. When it comes to the light side, we can think of the moon as like this intuition, personal, intuitive guidance, this idea of divine energy. You can think of it as the emotional state. You can think of it as like the incoming and receding tide and how your emotions will come and go. You can use it for journaling about how to better express yourself emotionally, how to let emotions come through you and flow through you rather than control you. I think it's also a good card to inspire journal prompts about your intuition and the way you trust yourself to make decisions and to move forward. However, there is a dark side to it, and it does represent the subconscious, fear. Perhaps you have trauma from that tower moment, and I think that this is a good card to kind of address that stuff. Childhood trauma, trauma between other people in relationships, situations. This is a good card to use to inspire journal prompts about how to heal from that stuff. It is a common thing for people to have fears and to live, not necessarily in fear, but to live with these fears controlling how we react and respond to external stimuli. And so I think that with this card and the journal prompts that come with it, it's more about tackling the hesitations and anxieties that we have brought with us from past experiences and trying to work past it, work through it, and heal the parts of ourselves that are struggling. The sun is a very fun card, and again, once I get to my solar plexus chakra stuff, these prompts are probably going to be very similar to healing your solar plexus. This asks you to address how you experience joy, what makes you happy, what lights you up, what gets you excited, what makes you feel passionate about life and the world and everything around you. It's a super fun card, and I really enjoy looking at ways that I can be happy and how I can create a life that I feel extremely thankful and excited in. I think a simple way that I've been working on this recently is redecorating my room, and another way that I want to do is to have a garden, because I think being more connected to nature and having the ability to grow something and to feel proud of it is going to bring me a lot of joy. So I think that the Sun card asks you to really tap into that childlike energy of excitement and happiness, and to explore the parts of you that are yearning for adventure and something new and refreshing. Similar to my feelings about the Justice card, Judgment also is kind of, I don't know, we don't understand each other, I guess. But Judgment to me is mostly about a spiritual journey, a rite of passage, a life perspective that we can't necessarily explain in words. And it's also a card about renewal and freedom and more or less an inevitable end, but not in the same that the world is or that death is. I think that it's more like an end is coming and we're moving on to something new, something good for us. So again, I struggle with this card personally, so I don't know if I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about it, just because, again, my relationship to it is meh. Again, if you are a tarot reader and you know a lot more about this than I do, please leave your comments down below, because I think me and then anybody watching this who is not into tarot or doesn't know much about it could use your wisdom. And lastly, we have the World card, which represents this idea of completion, celebration, and an end of one cycle to begin again with the Fool. So the World card to me inspires prompts about like completion, feeling fulfilled, the end of a project, the end of a rite of passage. It kind of feels like a change, but not like a sad change. I think it also represents this idea of fulfillment, when you feel so, like when your heart is so full and you're joyful and you are able to feel like you've completed something, like a project, or maybe you've hung out with your family and it makes you feel extremely happy. I don't know how to word this one. But the World card can also represent travel and could encourage you to start new adventures and to go places, to see other people, have new experiences, and to broaden your breadth of knowledge. So I really do like this card for those types of journal prompts, and I think it's a really good way to inspire journal prompts when you are traveling, to jot down what you experience, what you see, and how the world feels in that moment. Because I do think that there is a sense of fulfillment when we do have a vacation or we go somewhere new. And I think it's important to document such things, whether that be through a scrapbook journal, travel journal, or just normal journal prompts. Okay. I feel like I've talked a lot, but I really hope that these prompts help you and that you're able to find inspiration and journaling ideas that encourage you to go deeper and to explore yourself in a fun and unique way. Again, you don't have to be involved in the tarot or use tarot to use these prompts, nor do you have to be like use tarot for a divinatory thing if you don't want to. I just figured we could do this, and for those of you that do like tarot and are interested in more stuff like this, let me know if you want to see some content about like journal with me stuff, or if you want to see like a tarot in practice type of thing. And that's a Katie Flowers reference if you are in the tarot world. She has this thing called Tarot in Practice where she works with a tarot deck for like a month or so. I don't know if I would do it like that, but I'd have my own version maybe of just like showing you what it's like and how I use it to journal and inspire more prompts and self-healing. So yeah. But anyway, that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, I will catch you later.